Because here in this world, bad guys can win. So, I brought Yoda up. Why? Because Empire Strikes Back, which is the one that I'm reviewing today, is where we meet Yoda, and he has the biggest part and the best part in Empire Strikes Back. And he is absolutely my favorite character of all the Star Wars films, of all the Star Wars saga, any of the films, any of the shoot-offs, anything. He is absolutely my favorite. So I brought him forward for this one so that you can be just as unnerved as some of my guests are when he's looking your way. Some quick disclaimers. These videos are completely unedited, completely unfiltered, so whatever comes out of my mouth comes out of my mouth. If your kids are in the room, you probably either want to put this on headphones or ask them to leave the room. And I will give spoilers away, so if you don't want to know spoilers, look at the list on the bottom underneath the video. I'll have a whole list of movies that I talk about. And I'll have headers, the ones I give spoilers for, the ones I just quote, like Last Action Hero, or the ones that I just simply mention, and you don't have to worry about spoilers. That way, if you want to avoid spoilers, look at the ones that I have spoilers for. Okay, I'm back. I did a quick workout. I had dinner, and now I'm back recording the review for Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, 1980. So this is on the poster, which I have already scratched off, but it is not one that I'm using in the book. So the only one that I used in the book was episode, I think the only one that I used in the book, I should probably double check that. Where's my list? Yes. Double checking the list, and yes, the only one that I use for the book is episode 1, A New Hope. So, not following the book this time, but I do have a bunch of notes. So we'll go through the notes. Anytime I watch any of these movies, the Star Wars movies, and anytime somebody, and it's heavy in this one, and right in the beginning, anytime anyone says, "May the Force be with you," I always have this overwhelming feeling, even though I'm the audience, to say, "and also with you." Those people who are Christian and go to church, or even, I think they even do it in Catholic Mass, they might even do it there, when they say, peace be with you and also with you. So I always have that overwhelming feeling when they say, "May the Force be with you," and I always feel like saying, "and also with you." Anyway, total side note. Again, I watched this so long ago, and I wrote these notes, and I'm like trying to remember all my notes. I love that they start right in the beginning of this one. They start right in with the love theme between Leia and Han. They're not together yet. They get together in this. They get together in this one. I think so. So they're not together yet. But you already kind of get from the first one, like, maybe these two are going to get together. And then you watch this one, and you're like, oh, yeah, these two are definitely going to get together. Even though in the beginning they're at odds with each other again, like they were in the first one. I just as soon kiss a Wookiee. I can arrange that. So it's really, the lines are really good. Again, the writing here, like in the first one, the writing here is really good. And I like their dichotomy, those two characters. We got, at the end of the last one, we get the transition of Han, like I talked about in the review of it. We get that transition of Han going from being a smuggler to being part of the resistance, so he's a rebel, and then becoming a hero at the end of the film. Much like Luke goes through his transition, Han also goes through a great transition. And in the beginning of this one, we start off with the hero, Han. Now, yes, he has other obligations. He's saying he's got to pay. He's got a huge debt that he has to pay to Jabba the Hutt. But regardless of what he says and what comes out of his mouth, and he's talking about leaving and he's preparing to leave, as soon as he hears that Luke is in trouble, you get the hero part of him right away in this film, and it carries throughout the film. So I love the shift in his character, not necessarily his personality, but the deep part of his character is very different than what we got in A New Hope, and I really like it. I like Harrison Ford in this character, in this role, and Han Solo is very well represented in this one. I really like it. Oh, right. So, Luke is out. We're on Hoth. Everything's frozen. He's out doing reconnaissance, and Tank's making a bunch of noise. He's on reconnaissance, and the thing attacks and takes down his Tauntaun, and he sees Ben. And Ben tells him, to go to Dagobah. There you will learn from Yoda, the Jedi Master who instructed me. Okay. Like I talked about in A New Hope, that line, I don't ever remember owning a droid, and I haven't gone by that name since before you were born. So you have to give a little bit of a liberty. Did Lucas know about Qui-Gon Jinn at that point? Did he know in his head what he wanted and how it was going to go? Maybe not. Qui-Gon Jinn is the one who instructed and taught Obi-Wan. So this line, can we take it a different way? We know that from watching the other ones, we know that it's not Yoda who trained him, but it is Yoda who instructs him to take Luke into hiding on Tatooine. Well, he suggests Tatooine, but it's Yoda who says we should split them apart. Anyway, so we kind of got to take a little bit of liberty with that line. Like, it's not quite messed up. It's a little messed up. It doesn't quite work. And it does and it doesn't. One of my favorite lines from this one of Han, speaking of Han being so great, one of my favorite lines, probably of all time, of Han Solo is when he says, "Laugh it up, fuzzball." I love that line. I actually sometimes use that in day to day. It comes up and laugh it up, fuzzball. I love that one. Did anybody realize that John Ratzenberger is in Star Wars? He's in this whole opening scene when they go out to fight and blah, blah. That's John Ratzenberger. Does anybody know that? Do you even know who John Ratzenberger is? I mean, Cliff from Cheers, and he does so much great, fantastic, wonderful voiceover in a bunch of Pixar films. I was just like, John Ratzenberger's in this film, much like which one was it? Oh, man. The Temple of Doom, where Dan Aykroyd is the guy that gets them on the plane. You're like, but that's Dan Aykroyd. In this one, it's the same shock. It's like, that's John Ratzenberger. Oh, my God. I didn't realize he was in this. And he plays such a small little, side character. But that's him. Okay. And if you didn't realize it, Ryan Felipe is in not The Hunt for Red October. That's the wrong one. Not that one. What's he in? Oh my God, I'm trying to show off what I know in my brain, and here it is. I total brain fart. It's not The Hunt for Red October. It's what's the one that he's in? Huh? Oh my God! Now I have to look it up. I'm not gonna look it up. It's gonna hit my brain. I'm not gonna look it up because I know it, and it's gonna hit my brain, and I love it. I love it to death. Fantastic film, and you don't realize that Ryan Reynolds is in it, or not Ryan Reynolds, Ryan Felipe's in it. He doesn't have a word, but they show him multiple times. Total blank. It'll come to me later. Hoth. Oh, I don't know why I made this note, but okay. So, on Hoth, when the Empire comes, and they're taking down the AT-ATs, and I'm watching the movie, goes, that looks so easy. But in the game, it was like the hardest thing in the world for me. I couldn't keep the ship on target in the game to wrap around enough times to take it down. Like, it was the hardest thing in the world in the game, and I don't know why it was. It was always so difficult for me. And then to watch them in the film do it, I'm like, that looks so easy. Anyway, I love when Luke takes one down with a lightsaber and a bomb. Like, that's great. Like, I get that they can't shoot it. It's too powerful for them to just shoot it with the glider, so they have to, trip it or knock it down somehow. And I love that Luke takes one out with a saber and a bomb. It's fantastic. It takes Luke to another level. Okay, the Luke we had in A New Hope, he was still new, wasn't sure what was going on. And I like that character, and he has a really good shift, but he doesn't know much about the Force. He also doesn't know much about the lightsaber. He's still new and learning these things. And to see him use the Force in the very beginning, when he's hanging upside down and he uses the Force, it takes effort and concentration because he hasn't been trained, but he uses the Force to bring the saber to him and then cut himself loose. And then I like this part where he uses the saber to take down an AT-AT. It really brings home the fact that here we have a different Luke. There has been time in between these two films, and we have a different Luke who is partly trained himself and probably partly been trained by Obi-Wan now that he's part of the Force and talking to him. So he's been training. It's not the Luke we had at the end of A New Hope. Here's a new Luke who knows partly what he's doing. He's not a Jedi yet, but and Ben tells him he needs to go be trained by Yoda. But I like that we have a different level of Luke here. It's really good. It's really great. Oh, you can tell that they're models. So the AT-ATs, you can tell that they're models. But in my opinion, and I think I've said this before about special effects, when there's too much CGI, it just looks fake. It looks like, it's the next level of cartoon. Okay, I look at cartoon and I go, okay, it's fake, it's cartoon, it's definitely, it's obviously fake. And then computer takes it to another level where it looks much better than cartoon. It doesn't look quite that fake, but it still looks wrong and fake, and to my eyes I'm like, okay, it's still fake, and it's animation, even though it's computer animation. I remember back in the day we used to call it computer animation, and now we call it CGI, computer generated image. But it still looks fake, and there's something real about a model, even though you can kind of tell it's a model. Superman, that's a great example. Superman, the original film, Christopher Reeve's the first one. When the dam breaks and all the water comes and you see the village and you're like, it is clearly a model. And all the rocks that are coming down, it is clearly a model. But there is something to that texture that if they would have done that all CGI, in my opinion, I wouldn't have loved that as much. And I feel the same way with the Death Star, and when things crash in the Death Star and the AT-ATs and the ships. Yes, you can clearly tell that it's a model. If your eyes are trained enough, you can tell. But there's something real to it that I really like. There's a texture, and it's something. Oh, I talked about it a little bit when, in like horror special effects. There's something there. There's some texture instead of doing all computer. When they do a computer like bullet wound, I'm like, why are you doing that computer? There's a way to do that makes it looks pretty good. Every once in a while you get a blood pack that looks like crap under, Conan the Barbarian. Yeah. There's I remember one blood pack that just looked horrible. And I'm like, oh man, that one blood pack looked really bad. And then maybe there was one time where a guy threw blood on him. You can tell he's throwing blood on him. But there's something real and something texture-wise to it that if you do it with a computer, it just looks cartoon. Tank, no. There's something real to it when you have real makeup and real blood packs and bullet when you do it real makeup, that kind of thing. So I like it better than the computer generated stuff. I like the models when they do that. I love that idea of Han. Eventually we find out that he's in a giant worm. When he goes to take shelter in the asteroid, and then later on we find out that he's in a giant worm, like this giant worm creature. I love that idea. I think it's such a fun, fantastic, wonderful idea, and who came up with that? It's such a cool, you're not expecting it. If you haven't seen this before, you're totally not expecting it. Like, he's inside the belly of it, or inside the worm. I find that fantastic. I think it's great. Anyway, Yoda. I have Yoda here. Yoda is absolutely my favorite character in all, like I said, all Star Wars saga. He looks wonderful. He looks the best in this film. Why? Because it was done by real puppeteers. And there's a realness to it that I appreciate more than CGI. And he looks fantastic. They even show his feet, which a lot of time when you're trying to do animatronic, when you're trying to do puppeteering, you don't want to show certain things because you've got something up inside of him and you don't want to show. But they even show his feet. And it's great. He's bent over going in for the food and stuff like that, and you see his little feet. He cracks me up. He is so funny in this one. They bring back a little bit of his funniness to the character. They bring back a little bit of funniness to his character, I think, in The Last Jedi, when he shows up and he laughs at Luke when he blows up the tree with the I think it was the tree or whatever. He uses the Force to bring down the tree, and he laughs at Luke. So they bring back a little bit of his funniness for that, whereas the first three, he's very serious. There's not a whole lot of comedy to him in the first 3 episodes. There's a lot of very serious, wise Yoda. Maybe it's because he's younger. Maybe it's maybe they didn't realize that they were making him really serious in the first 3. In this one, he is hilarious. And you got to think, he's been alone for how long? Like, there's no other... Well, I think Luke even says when he scans it, there's no intelligent life form, but he can't find intelligent life form. Because I feel like we're led to believe that the only intelligent life form on this planet, Dagobah, is Yoda, who is in exile, which we find out. Yeah, he's in exile. So... he's been alone for how long? And he's kind of loopy and kind of crazy and kind of fun. And he's much older now. Think about it. Yes, he says he's 900 years old. I think in Return of the Jedi, he says he's 900 years old. So maybe for Luke being now 20-something years old, maybe 20 years is not a huge deal. But being isolated for how long and that he's 20 years older, it's great that his character is funny and ridiculous and... He's fantastic. I love him in this when he goes for the food. I already said that. When he goes for the food, how could you this size eating food of this kind? Or I can't remember the exact line. And one of my favorite parts is when he's got the little light. He's got the little light, and then R2-D2 tries to take it. Mine. And then R2 let him have it, and he takes it, and then he hits the little door shut. He's hilarious in this one. I love it. He's eccentric. He's wonderful. That is probably one of my favorite parts, comedy-wise. That's one of my favorite parts of Yoda. There's a serious part that I love even more than that, like my absolute favorite Yoda part of all the films. But as far as like a fun comedy Yoda, that when he hits the little door shut... That's my mine. Han and Leia's first kiss. I love it. I love that. Maybe or maybe not in the first one you think they're going to get together. I kind of feel it in the first one a little bit. But in this one, from the beginning, you know that they're fighting, but you also know they're going to get together. So when it finally does happen, when that first kiss, it's so well done. And I think I've talked about this before in another review. Being a gay man, growing up, and seeing all representation on film straight. It's all straight. Man and woman, man and woman. I was never a huge fan of love scenes. I was never a huge fan, definitely not of sex scenes. And there are very few that are so well done that I can put my personal feelings aside and really love and enjoy it. The Terminator. The Terminator has one I cannot tear my eyes away from because it's so well done. Because the characters are so well developed and you've been with them on this ride for so long that when they finally get together, I can't not watch it. It's so well done. And whether they liked each other in real life or not, Linda Hamilton and Michael Biehn, whether they liked each other in real life or not, I have no idea. But their chemistry on camera is palpable. And that's one of those scenes that I just can't, no matter what, I can't take myself away from. And this scene, finally we get Han and Leia and they kiss. It's so well done. I can't not love it. Oh, that's my phone. I didn't know the thing was on. I can't not love it. It's so well done. And I'm like, yes, now they're together. And then it's hilarious that C-3PO like fucks it all up. Thank you. I think that was equally as brilliant as their first kiss and how they get together. It's equally as brilliant that C-3PO ruins it all. And then, Leia escapes. It's very, very well done. Why did I write this note? How many Skywalkers can there be? Okay, I wrote a huge long note. How many Skywalkers can there be? Set a course. In the beginning, Vader says, set a course for Hoth. Because he knows the rebel is there. I'm sure Skywalker is with them. He says that. When he tells them to set a course for Hoth. I'm sure Skywalker is with them. Later, Skywalker is on Dagobah. Leia, and then Vader gets a call. Oh, after Han and Leia hide in the asteroid, Vader gets a call from the Emperor, and the Emperor tells him, I have no doubt this boy is the offspring of Anakin Skywalker. And Vader says, how is that possible? Again, how many Skywalkers can there be? Okay, so here's an example of poor writing. Okay. We want a revelation. Vader finding out that the child survived, or that there was a child, because, okay, we have to negate the first three, because when this movie was made, they didn't know the first three, or didn't know how the first three were going to go about. So the fact that the Emperor tells Vader in Revenge of the Sith that you killed her or something, he believes that his kids did not get born because she was pregnant. Okay, so we have to kind of negate that. Okay, let's just get rid of it. If we're just speaking of, okay, all we have right now is A New Hope and now Empire Strikes Back, we're like, okay, we want that revelation that Vader is like, how can there be another Skywalker? How can there be how did my child survive? How? We want that surprise. Okay, if you want that, take it out of the beginning when he says, I know Skywalker is there. How many Skywalkers can there be? He has to know that this is of his bloodline. He knows Skywalker. So take that line out. I think, does he even say it at the end of A New Hope? He knows it's a Skywalker? He might already. I can't remember 100%. But I do know, as far as this film, one film being contained, how can he not know that it's a Skywalker? It's his offspring. So that either take it out of the beginning or take it out of that part where he says, how is that possible? I have no doubt that there's, the Emperor says, I have no doubt that this is the offspring of Anakin Skywalker. How can that be? Well, take that out. That doesn't work. It doesn't work. Yoda gets his reputation from this film. We loved when Yoda showed up in episode 1, when he shows up in episode 2. Every time he shows up, we love it. Why? This is the first film that we get Yoda, and this is where he gets his reputation from, and he deserves it. The fun, playful Yoda, because he's older. The wise Yoda, because Obi-Wan tells Luke, you're going to learn from him. He taught me. So we know that he's wise. And then when he has that line, when he says, my own counsel will I keep on who is ready. He's been training Jedis for a long time. So we get to hear somebody of importance. And, the voiceover is done so well. Frank Oz does such a great job. And this is the Yoda I love. This is the Yoda, we grew up with, we love. Luke on Dagobah. When I was younger, I think I said in the other one, I saw Return of the Jedi first. Then I went back because I liked it so much. I think my dad, somebody got me to go back and watch the other two. A New Hope and then Empire. So I knew already, before the big revelation, I knew Vader was Luke's dad. I knew they were related. And I think back then when I saw this, I didn't quite understand. When Luke goes, he's on Dagobah, and when he goes into the dark place where the dark side, that place is heavy with the dark side of the Force, or strong with the dark side of the Force. And your weapons, you will not need them. So when he goes down in there and confronts Vader, and then kills Vader, takes his head off, and the mask blows off. Not up, blows off. I never understood that. One, I think when I was a kid and I watched this, I didn't realize that was Luke. That was Mark Hamill's face. But when I realized that it is Mark Hamill's face and that's supposed to be Luke in there, I didn't understand it. It's like, why is he wrestling with something internal? Why does he see himself in there? I couldn't figure that out. Is it because he was wrestling with parts of the dark side and he sees himself in Vader? It wasn't until years later I was like, he sees himself because he doesn't know what Vader looks like, but deep down inside, he knows he's related. Does he necessarily know he's his father? I don't know. But it's beautiful foreshadowing. He knows deep down inside, if he just quiets himself and stretches out with his feelings like they're trying to train him to do, he would know that Darth Vader and him are related. And that's why he sees himself in there, is because he knows they're related somehow. If he would just accept it, that, and just stretch out with his feelings like Yoda and Obi-Wan has tried to get him to do. Boba Fett. Okay, let the hate messages come. I've never liked Boba Fett. I don't understand how he blew up into this mega star like Boba. In the Empire, he's barely in it. He's in the background. I think he has one line. It's not until Return of the Jedi that he has something to do, and then they kill him. Or, you know, when you kill people, a lot of times they don't really die. He gets out or something. I think in the books or something like that, he gets out of that thing that he falls into in Return of the Jedi. So he's not really dead. But anyway, I never understood the Boba Fett thing. Never. And why his character or the like of him had to be so prominent in Attack of the Clones, and then why they made a whole show about his people. I don't get the appeal. I never got the appeal. But I love that people love him. Great, fantastic. It's not for me. He was never. The best Yoda line, do or do not. There is no try. No, do or do not. There is no try. Yeah, that's the best Yoda line. In my opinion, absolutely, there is no line better than that. Although he has wonderful lines in almost all of the films that he's in, that is to me the epitome of Yoda. And the epitome of him trying to teach the Force. You either believe it or you don't. You either can or you can't. There is no maybe. There is no try. There's nothing in between. You either... I love that line. Oh, cute little line. Okay, so when Yoda tells him to lift the ship when the ship is going down, and he's not paying attention and he falls and all the rocks fall. When Yoda tells him to lift the ship and he's like, it's too big. Judge me by my size, do you? Does he say that before or after? See, now I can't remember. But when Luke goes to lift the ship, and then he comes back and he's all out of breath and he's like, it's too big. And he just sits down and he's exhausted and he's like, that reminds me of, or I was reminded of, and now I put the two together. Every time I see one, I think of the other. The Matrix. Every time I see one, I think of the other, of this part. This part with Luke is like when, totally blanking. Oh my God. Morpheus is trying to teach Neo when he says, I know Kung Fu. He says, show me. So they're in the Matrix fighting. And Neo goes down and he's panting. You're too fast. I said, do you think that my being stronger or faster has anything to do with my muscles in this place? Do you think that's air that you're breathing? These two parts always remind me of each other because it's waking you up to a revelation. One, you're in a computer. Your muscles, you're not really breathing anything. You're breathing in the real world, but you're not breathing in the computer. Okay, you're in a computer generated dream world. Okay, and the Force. You are working in conjunction with the Force. Like he says, judge me by my size, do you? I'm working with the Force. The Force is everywhere, all around us, and there is no need to be panting and out of breath. And you're not exerting yourself. You are working in combination with the Force. And I just find that I put them together because of the panting and you really think that moving the ship has anything to do with your muscles and why are you exerting yourself physically when it has nothing to do with that? It's about the Force. It's not about something physical. I like that. Speaking of that monologue right after that, Luke sits down. Before Yoda lifts the ship, he has that amazing, and this is my absolute favorite part Yoda part. My absolute favorite line is do or do not try, do or do not. There is no try. But my favorite dramatic piece of Yoda is when he explains the force is all around us, between me, you, the ship, the tree. That is such a wonderful, and I forget that we're looking at a puppet. I forget, because it's so amazing, such a great dramatic piece. Like, the acting is brilliant. You know, Frank Oz, just, he did this so well, and the writing is so well. That is my absolute favorite Yoda part. And it's just, it gives me goosebumps. Almost every single time I watch it, it gives me goosebumps because it's so great. It's the music and what he's talking about and how it's bigger than you, but you work in combination with it, and it's through us and in us and everywhere. Oh, it's such a great, I can't put into words how amazing that is. Just such a wonderful part. Oh, and you know, after Yoda moves the ship, he's not out of breath. He moves it, he sets it down. He's not out of breath. Why? Because it has nothing to do with his physical muscles. That's why I put those two together. So, when Han Solo gets out of the worm, the giant worm, and then the Empire is going after him, and then he goes into attack mode for the big ship, and then he hides himself like stuck on the ship. I don't have to dialogue the whole thing, but he's on there, and then he detaches himself and he says, well, just, if they follow Imperial code, they'll dump their garbage before they go to light speed. And that always makes me laugh, because I'm like, they just dump their garbage in space? Really? They're just, and I can just think of like all this garbage in space. Every time they go to light speed, they dump their trash. So you've got all this garbage in space. And he says something in the first, I think it was in the first one, you can't just jump to light speed. There, you know, calculations, you'll fly into a what does he say? You'll fly into a asteroid field or a ship, and that'll end your trip real quick. Well, what about all the trash in space? There's no map for all the trash that they throw in space, and some of it was pretty big. And if you're going light speed, you would go through the trash. Like, I mean, okay, space is huge, so the chance that you run into trash doesn't seem that high. But how, before they jump to light speed, so how many times do they jump to light speed? So they're throwing trash all over the galaxy? That line, I'm just like, okay, trash in space, a bunch of trash in space. Okay. Lando is such a great character. I think it's a fun character. I think Billy D. Williams does such a great job. He's only in it. He's probably in less than half the movie, I think. When did they see him? You know, I would have to really look at the timestamps. When did they meet him? But he makes such an impact. He's such a great character, and he makes such an impact that they're like, gotta have him in the other ones because he's so great. I like the levels of his character. He's kind of like, when you first meet him, he's kind of like the first time you meet Han. You're not sure you like him or not. But then when he goes against the Empire and then tries to help them out, at first you're like, oh, he made a deal with, Vader and the Empire. But then you realize he didn't have a choice. Yeah, absolutely, he didn't have a choice. They would have just wiped him off the map. So you kind of get where he's coming from, but you're still not sure you like him. But it's not until he goes against the Empire that you really like him. They did a really good job with that character. I liked it. Anyway, okay, so it is unfortunate to a degree It is unfortunate that I saw Return of the Jedi before I saw the other ones. But if you're watching these and you don't know the whole story, and you don't know, I mean, how can you not know Leia? See, that's the hard part about these movies is taking away what you already know and experiencing it for what it is. When Obi-Wan says, you know, that boy's our last hope, and Yoda says, no, there is another. Do we know that it's another? He's talking about another Skywalker, or just there's more hope for another Jedi? I mean, obviously, you know, we've seen the other ones. We know Luke and Leia are siblings, so it's kind of hard to be like, that's a surprise. Oh, we already know. And you can't get that great feeling of like, oh, there's another, because you already know. You know, it's hard to have, but that's what that line is meant to inspire, and I wish I could have seen it when it was new. I mean, if any of you are watching this review, did you actually watch it in theater? Excuse me, did you actually watch it in theaters? Did you not know that Leia... What was the experience of not knowing that Luke and Leia were related? That he was a twin? That they were a Skywalker? Or they were Anakin's offspring? I guess that's why that line is there when... No, I still can't justify that line, that Vader line, you know, when the Emperor says, I have no doubt that this is the offspring of Anakin Skywalker. Just, well, maybe that line is there because we're not supposed to know yet that Vader is Anakin Skywalker. Maybe that line only works that way. It doesn't work because the character knows he's Anakin Skywalker, so he wouldn't say that. Regardless of whether we as the audience know yet or not, he knows who he is. So that line still doesn't work. Anyway, yeah, that line just... sorry. I'm going off on a tangent. I just wanted to know is if you've seen this, if you saw this in the theater or for the first time in the theater, and you watched it before Return of the Jedi came out. No, they say it in this, that Leia's his sister. They say it in this. Yeah, that's right. What was that experience? Do you remember, oh wow, the revelation that he and Leia are siblings? I would love to know. Lando'S Betrayal already said that his betrayal is not quite a surprise because we realized that, you know, he was in a tough spot, and if he would have gone against the Empire when they showed up, they would have just killed him. When Leia says I love you and Han says I know. I hear a lot of hype about that part. Harrison Ford gets a lot of hype about that part. And you don't really get it until you watch it. And then you're like, wow, it's deserving. And it's not like, you know, we know the line, I have been waiting for you, Obi-Wan. You don't get it until you watch it. You're like, oh, okay, now it's deserving. And this is the same thing. You don't really get it until... You know, there are so many great lines in film history that we say all the time, that we quote all the time. I'll be back. You know, there are so many great lines. I mean, I can say hello to my little friend. You know, there's just so many that you say it and you're like, oh yeah, I know that line. But until you watch it. And then you're like, oh, yeah, it's deserving. That's why people remember that line. That's why, you know? And this is one of those, that's why. That's why people say that. I love you, I know. And it's in keeping with both their characters. It's in keeping with their characters, their dichotomy from the very beginning, where they're like I said, they're like two opposite sides of the magnet you're trying to put together. It's deserving, and it's in keeping with that character that they would say that. It's a great moment. And you're not sure, you know, Han is going to survive, you know, being put in carbonite. I'm altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further. Yeah, I love that line. It just adds to how awesome Darth Vader is as a bad guy. We know that he answers to the Emperor. We even know that from the beginning because he gets those calls from the Emperor. And he's the Emperor. We know that. But if you're just watching the films and you watch them in this order, A New Hope and then Empire Strikes Back, the only one you really see, the only one you really get is Darth Vader. And he's such a great, steady force of the dark side. And everything he does is calculated, and it's just he's very well done. He's very well written, and I don't know if I like him more in this one or if I like him more in the other one, in A New Hope. As a bad guy, he's fantastic in this one. I love him. There's other things to say in Return of the Jedi, because he's not all bad in Return of the Jedi, and I love the shift in his character in that one. Much like watching, when you're watching Revenge of the Sith and you see, it's sad to see Anakin being manipulated. It's just as exciting. It's sad to see that, but it's exciting to see that because we know who Vader is and what he turns into. But in Return of the Jedi, it's wonderful to see that shift too. You're excited for that shift. Anyway, I might talk about that in that video. I don't want to talk about it now. The saber fight in this one. The saber fight in this one between Luke and Vader, the start of it, in that dark room where he's going to encase him in carbonite. It's such a beautiful setting. Again, it's almost like the Dooku fight, where they made it so dark that the sabers are so prominent. It's just beautifully done. And it's not just what you see, all the smoke and the stairs with the lights on them, and it's all dark and wonderful, and the movement of the sabers. It's not just that, but it's also the confrontation of Luke and Vader. Were we looking forward to this more than we were looking forward to the Vader Obi-Wan? The Vader Obi-Wan is really set up really well, but it was kind of a surprise in my opinion. So if you watch my review of the first one, I talk about how it's kind of a surprise because it's subtly done, the setup, and then all of a sudden here's this big confrontation and you were looking forward to it and you didn't even know. This one is on purpose. We know they're gonna confront each other. Even Yoda says if you confront him now, anyway. So we know that they're gonna confront each other. We know this, and we're waiting for it, and we want it. Okay? And we know that Luke is still fresh. And the two people we trust, the two Jedis we trust, Yoda and Obi-Wan, have told him that you are at a very vulnerable point in this time. If you go to face him, the chances of you be turning to the dark side is very high. Be careful. So we, as the audience, this is like nail biting. This is like, it's very tense. And all the dark, it adds to that tension. It's really, really well done. I love this setting for that first fight. And then they go into the other room where it's like very industrial and things like that. And that setting's fine. And then, Vader's throwing stuff at him. That setting's fine. I love the setting before that. It's so beautiful. It's so great to see visually. No, I am. For years and years and years, people would say, Luke, I am your father. No, that's not the line. The line is, no, I am your father. Yes, so I love the line. It's brilliant, and it's shocking. Again, I would love to hear from people. Did you see this in theater and not did you see this in theater when it first came out and not know the story? What was it like experiencing that? What was it like realize, oh my God, Vader is his father? He wasn't killed. He didn't kill Anakin. He is Anakin. He didn't, you probably, yeah, you know Anakin's name, but you barely know Anakin's name. He didn't kill Luke's father like Obi-Wan said. He is Luke's father, and what is that revelation like? Like, please let me know if you're one of those people. I wasn't shocked by this. I said I don't remember ever being shocked by that. I wasn't shocked by this because I saw Return first, and I know who Vader was. I knew who Vader was. So when he takes Luke's hand off, and Luke, instead of joining him, okay, this is horrible, but I'm going to say it anyway. Okay, side note, this is horrible, but I'm going to say it anyway. Every time Luke does, no, and the face, no, it always reminds me of, and I'm sorry, Mark Hamill, I'm not trying to make fun of you. It's just the look and the way he says it. It reminds me of. Did you guys ever see the original 1990s It? Stephen King's It, and when she finds oh, I forget which one. Stanley. When she finds Stanley in the bathtub after the phone call, and he slit his throat, and he wrote "It" on the wall, and she goes, yeah. I'm like, you could interchange those two scenes, and it's the same thing. It always reminds me of this. Anyway, I know that's a dumb note, but I mean, it wasn't a note. I know that's a dumb, but I always think of one when I see. I always think of them both when I see one or the other. It's the same thing with the moving on. When he sacrifices himself, back to something serious. So when he sacrifices himself instead of joining Vader and he falls, do you think that he knew that do you think that he thought he was going to die? I think so. I think that he sacrificed him. He thought he was going to die. How is he supposed to know that he's going to get sucked into that too and be okay eventually? I don't think he knew that. But then Luke reaches out to Leia specifically. I wonder if he knows that Han is not available. Or does he know, much like when he was in the Dark Force place on Dagobah, and he saw himself in Vader's mask, did he already know that Leia was his sister internally? And he's just not really listening to the Force like he should. Because if he really listened and quieted himself and listened to the Force, he would know that Leia is his sister. He would have known that Vader was his dad. Does he reach out to Leia at this point because instinctually he knows she will hear and they are related, and she also is strong with the Force, whether she chooses to accept that, whether she chooses to develop that is up to her, but he reaches out to her specifically because he knows she is the best hope of actually getting through. I wonder. But he definitely goes for Leia specifically, and then she feels him, which is great. Again, for those people who saw this in the theater, when he reaches out to her, do you instinctually think, oh, I wonder if she's the other one? I wonder. What did you feel like after watching this? Before watching, can you remember? What did you feel about the characters after watching this, before watching Return of the Jedi? Because this came out in 1980? This came in 1980, and Return of the Jedi, if I remember correctly, is 84? I'm going to check. Whoops. Mark Hamill has done so much. It's like 1980. I should have just looked up Return of the Jedi. '83. Okay, according to IMDb, 83. So there's 3 years in between. ...1980 and 1983. Okay, so there are 3 years in between the two movies. So I wonder, what did it feel like knowing that for those 3 years, one, you know you're going to get another movie. Because the way this ends, I started off with the quote, I started off with why? Because technically the good guys don't really win in this one. At the end, it's very dark side heavy. Bad guys can win. So, when this movie ended, you knew you were going to get another one. You knew. What was it like in those 3 years knowing that Vader was Luke's dad, and that there is that connection between he's the only one between Luke and Leia. He's the only one Leia. She is the only one Luke reaches out to and connects with in that way. So we don't know if he can talk to other people that way or not, but we know he can talk to her that way. Was that connection strong enough to go, oh, she must be related? She must be the one that Yoda talks about there is another. I wonder. I mean, because I didn't see it in theaters, I don't know. And those people who are watching, would you remember that? Would you remember how you thought in those 3 years, like, oh, what's going to happen? Are they related? Is Han going to be okay? There's a lot of like what ifs at the end of this that make it a great. It's a cliffhanger. It makes it a great cliffhanger, and waiting for the next one. Oh. It speaks to Luke's character in a huge way. It speaks to the fundamental nature of his character. People make mistakes all the time. So even a good person can make mistakes, but at their core, they're a good person. And some people are just nasty people, and every once in a while they do something great, do something good, but they're still nasty people, at the core. We know that Luke is a very good-natured, a good person at the core, and maybe sometimes he makes mistakes, but there's this great moment after he finds out about his dad, where he's a couple of times he asks Ben, like, why didn't you tell me? And he's not mad. It is so easy for an actor to look at that line and go, why didn't you tell me? What the heck? What's wrong with you? Why didn't you let me know? It's completely different than, why didn't you tell me? Why did you never tell me? Why? So it speaks to Luke's character that he is perplexed and doesn't understand why Obi-Wan didn't trust him with this information, didn't just tell him the truth. Why didn't you tell me the truth? Instead of getting mad at Obi-Wan or Yoda or anyone else about not telling him the truth. What was the motivation behind you not telling me who Vader really was? So it speaks volumes to Luke as in the later ones he questions himself because he makes the wrong decision with Kylo Ren. Oh, he makes the wrong decision with Kylo Ren and blah 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 blah, whatever. Okay, in this one you get that he, at his core, would always make the right decision. Why? Because the light side of the Force, the good side. I hate when they say the good side later on. I think they say that in Return, and I'm like, I don't like it that you say the good side. You say the dark side of the Force and the good side. No. The dark side and the light side, in my opinion. It should be the dark and the light side. Okay. Anyway, Luke is strong and will always follow the path of the light side because of these little insights into his character, and the fact that he doesn't get upset with Obi-Wan or Yoda. He's just not understanding. He's perplexed. Why didn't you? Anyway, I'm harping on this point a little too much, so we'll move on. Oh, the last note I have here for Empire Strikes Back, and I kind of already alluded to this. It's a little hard to get a middle movie right. And I have a friend who thinks that this is the best one of all of them. I don't happen to agree with him, so if you've watched my other review, you already know by the fact that I say this is not my favorite, that you already know which one my favorite is, even though I haven't said it yet. It's hard to get a middle movie right because you know there's something before it, and then you get that feeling there's something after it. But I feel like this one closes the end well enough, but also leaves you with like, I can't wait to find out what happens next. I think it does a good job. It's not a self-sufficient movie. You can't just watch this one and be like concluded. No. But it does a good job of forwarding the characters from the end of the last one. It does a good job of keeping you engaged and wanting to know what's going on, and also leaving it, closing the story enough, but leaving enough open that you're looking forward to another one. It's a little challenging. It can be a little challenging. Another one, recently, I think I've said this before, I recently watched the Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning #1 a couple of times so far in the theater, and it also does a good job of, no spoilers, it also does a good job of closing the story like this, closing the story enough to be like, okay, I'm good with that, but leaving enough open to where you're like, I know this is part one. We know the Empire is the second, is the middle one. So anyway, there's Star Wars Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back. I love it. The best Yoda line, the best Yoda parts, the best Yoda line ever, and he is absolutely my favorite character of all characters. He's fantastic. Crimson Tide. Crimson Tide. I told you I was going to remember. I once you stop thinking about it, you remember it. The Ryan Felipe, he's barely even in it. He doesn't even have a line. He's looking at the fish or whatever. Crimson Tide. That popped in my head because I was like, it's the end of the video. Am I going to remember? Yes, Crimson Tide. Great. I love this movie. It's great. And I've already alluded to the fact that it's not my favorite, but I really don't know. I think from the sheer fact that Yoda is in this film, and Yoda is absolutely amazing in this film, I do like this one more than I like A New Hope. And A New Hope is great, but I already said in the last video, it's not my favorite. Okay, anyway, I'll shut up now, and hopefully later on tonight I can record I realized earlier today when I was in the gym, I was thinking to myself, well, you know what? I can just record all three of these and then post them all tomorrow. And I might do that. So I might do a review of Return of the Jedi tonight. Okie doke. See you soon. Thanks for watching.